Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of the Winning with Shopify podcast. For anyone that's not tuned in before, my name's Nick and I've been hosting the podcast for just over 3 years now. We passed 3 years last week, which is so exciting. And I know some of you have listened to every single episode of that, so thank you so much. It goes without saying, I wouldn't be doing this without you guys supporting the show, tuning in, leaving us a review, subscribing, and most importantly, the bit I enjoy absolutely the most is when you guys send us emails and reach out and ask for help and advice. If anyone missed our midweek bonus episode, we don't normally do those. We announced that we're actually launching an enormous community, and that's all I'm going to say about it today. But go and check out that episode if you missed it for whatever reason, especially if you tuned in today thinking it's every Friday. We did post a couple of days ago as well, so make sure you check that out. Today, we're continuing our series here in June, talking with different founders, marketing people, e-com people, etc. All from a Shopify background to find out their story, their journey. Joining me today is a very special guest. Her name is Lucy from a business called Bearkind. So Lucy, welcome to the show.
Hi, Nick. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. And as I ask everyone, although last week I asked 2 questions, I normally only ask 1 question now, which is tell us about your business and your background. Last week I asked why you're sitting in a car, Jake, because he was literally sitting in his truck while he was talking to us. But tell us about your background and everything, Lucy. But also, I'm going to make it one of my regular question things. Tell us where you are right now and why you are where you are.
Yeah, well, I'm just at home. So I'm in East London, so home office. But yeah, so I'm Lucy. I'm the founder of Bearkind, and we sell socks that save animals. So we donate 10% of the profits to save the animal on the sock. So we're an e-commerce business. That's how we started. And I actually used to work for a bank. So I have no background in this. It was just one of those things that it was a side hustle, and then COVID happened. And I was like, oh, screw it. I could do anything, like literally anything could happen. So, and now here I am 3.5 years later. And I run the business with my partner, who also in the last couple of years quit working for a bank as well, actually, to run the business with me. So we run it from home. This is our like home office.
Nice.
And so that's where we are now.
Amazing. Completely different world to banking. I guess there's a lot of financials though, isn't there? Because I get one of the questions we get asked so much in my agency actually is about like people will say like, oh, what do all these figures mean? How does reporting work? Why can't I attribute sales properly? Do you find, and this is, I told you we're going to go on tangents before we hit record, yeah. Lucy. This is tangent number 1. Do you find actually a background in finance and numbers and analytics has helped you understand what's going on and all the different like bits of the pie from every order that have to go out on VAT, shipping, and the whole rest of it?
It definitely does. I'd say the thing is, I worked for a bank, but I didn't actually do too much with numbers because I was on a grad scheme. I was in products. I was in customer experience. Like, so you definitely learn a lot, and I think you learn a lot about like how a big company works and what to do and also what not to do. So there's kind of like structures to your week and the team meetings and just generally having conversations with people in the office that I think really help. But other than that, there wasn't much in my day job that I actually took from that to here. However, my partner, he's done like 10 years in banking, investment banking, accounting, all kinds of financy stuff. And he's essentially CEO and CFO. He does a lot on the finance side of it. He's a whiz with a spreadsheet, and that really, really helps. Nice. So yeah, I think, yes, if you have a background in numbers, yeah, absolutely, it will help in a business setting.
Yeah. And I think some brands as well, they start to get successful and actually trip up when it's like, tax, how does that work? And it's like, well, you should have been saving it all along and you now need
just
to pay
profits in general. Exactly. Like generally, if you get to the point where you're like, where's all my money gone? Which I have done before. It's like, okay, I was focusing on revenue, not profit. That's why.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had clients as well that have like started doing PPC advertising with us, and they come back to us like a year in and gone, we said 2-1 ROI. It needs to be like 7. And we're like, what? Where's this number come from? And then when they explain and we look at the numbers with them and go, oh, okay, you're based in the US and actually shipping is like $40 for quite a small item. It's like, okay, all of that needs to be factored in if we're going to offer free shipping.
Oh, absolutely. Or not, so. You're like unit economics. You need to be really, really tight on them. We've done a lot. It's very topical because over the last like year and a half, we've done a lot of big movements in the business to work on this specifically, like our profitability. So we're adding in new manufacturers. We've moved fulfillment warehouse. Like everything is to the like point of what is our margin and how are we going to make this profitable, because we were doing quite well and growing, but then our profit was not big enough to make it sustainable. And I think it's very, very easy to hide that away, and then a few years down the line you have no business. So you do have to be looking at it like right from the off. I think it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I used to run my own business selling bamboo sunglasses, which is not too far away from your
Ah.
products. Just it's on the other end of your body, as in your feet, rather than rather than your eyes. But certainly, yeah, we used to run those, and I had a business partner who was similar to me. Like, and I think the downside, if you're listening, Ben, love you to bits, and we still work together in PPC, but we realised we both had basically like the same skill sets. Where they differed was like I manage a whole team of people. He's got one or two people. I've got quite a big P&L and a bit more of a managing director, where he's more of a small lifestyle. I'm really, really good at PPC. So he would do the bit that I would have enjoyed the most, and I was doing some of the other bits. But when we made a spreadsheet and we're like, okay, how many bamboo sunglasses do we need to sell a day to be profitable? When we start to then factor in, okay, at that level, we're going to need a warehouse, then we're going to need a bigger team of people just to send products out. Our marketing budget's going to have to grow with that, etc., etc. At that point, it was like, okay, before we get to 1,000 sunglasses a month, we're not going to make any profit. To get to 20 grand a year each, which in the UK is like way below the like even kind of average salaries. I think it's probably close to minimum wage for the age we were at the time as well.
Yeah.
So even at that point, we were like, we need to be selling. I think we worked out it was like 600 a day or something ridiculous. And there wasn't much room to change the margin unless we offered loads more products, which means a bigger warehouse. So we got to a point where like it's investment or nothing here, and we decided nothing. So we closed the thing down.
But that's great foresight. I'm sorry, but like I think a lot of people could just carry on down that road and be like, I'm just making a sale, and then another sale, and then just not really look further into the future. We've gone through the exact same process with the business at the moment, is looking at, okay, what do we actually need to make on an annual basis to make this sustainable? Because you kind of at some point have to tell, the business is 6 years old now. 3.5 years of that was actually properly the socks, me full time. So the first few years I kind of don't really count. But we actually need to have the conversation of, okay, if we're not growing, or if we're growing steadily, like, is that enough? Like, at what level do we say that's not enough? So we have, and that's just where you set your goals, right? So we're comfortable with our level of growth and where we're going, but we also have to achieve those goals, because then we turn around and decide, actually, maybe this isn't working. Is it the product? Is it the business model? Is it our cost base? But I do think it's really important to have those conversations. They're hard conversations, because you're basically looking at what you're doing and deciding, maybe we're doing it wrong. And a lot of people don't want to do that. They'd rather kind of stick their head in the sand. So I think it's good that you guys did that early on.
I wouldn't say it was as early as it probably sounds. It was probably like 2 years in. I think it all started.
That's enough.
It all started.
People will go a long way before having that conversation.
That is true. And we've actually worked with clients before that have, there's one in particular, I've actually just given them an offer to buy the thing off them and said, I'll buy it off you, find a like warehouse manager basically at a small warehouse and run it myself. Just because they know so much about their product and everything else, but they don't know anything about marketing and e-commerce. And so, if you guys are listening, hey, you know who you are. But there might be some sort of agreement we come to, but it was almost my frustration. Like, this is actually a world-changing product, and it helps every woman between the age of about probably 16 and probably 60. And so I was like, this is a really powerful thing that's not available on the NHS or anything else. Like, we should actually do something. But it's just the marketing bit, and they're kind of going through the motions at the moment, deciding what to do. But we've got 3 clients who had launched medical products recently and really struggling, which leads me on nicely to, I think, probably one of the most biggest and fundamental questions to ask you. Going back, I know you said the first 3 years or so didn't really count because you weren't running it as a business. It was a side project. What got you to start it in the first place? Like, what was the impetus behind it? How did you choose your first product? And then kind of, we'll come on to some of the other steps in the journey, but what actually got you going on day one?
Yeah, sure. Because I didn't start with socks. That's what the business is now, but almost kind of by accident. But I actually started with reusable straws, like the stainless steel straws that you'd get for drinks to avoid using single plastic straws. And it was just because I went for a drink with a friend, and she got a straw out of her bag, like just a silver metal one. I was like, what are you doing? never seen at that point.
Bring your own cutlery.
Yeah, right? And it just, I was like, what are you doing? And she said, just to reduce single-use plastic. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. But we could make that so much more prettier than that one is. And that was the first idea. And I just started playing around with it. And I think you are kind of the sum of the people you hang around with. And I just happened to have been spending a lot of time with someone who was starting their own business selling, I want to say, pillows on Amazon. It was completely random, but I was just seeing that happening. And I was like, oh, I could do this. So I was just like playing around, and I started that, and I started by drop shipping. Very quickly realized the downsides of drop shipping. So then went into bought some of my own stock. So I invested about £1,000 to start with.
Yeah.
I was working for a bank. I was on a like decent wage. So I was like, you know what, this is fun. Even if nothing happens of it, I'm just, enjoying the process. And then just kind of went down that process. And the reason I've ended up on socks is purely because there was a video going around the internet of a turtle with a straw stuck up his nose. So they became a bit of a mascot for me in like my marketing, and I wanted to give back to the turtles because I was using their imagery a lot. So that's where the turtle socks came from. That's the first sock I started with, but then my customers loved them, and then they added more, and then suddenly I've got a sock company on my hands.
Nice. But there's still a need in that, isn't there? There's still a passionate, like, actually, we need to change a problem here, which bringing about something you were saying, which is much more recent in the last 3 years, about having a look in the mirror constantly and going like, are we doing the right thing? Where is the margin going? You obviously looked at it from a financial point of view. It must make, and I think you kind of hinted at this, it must make some of those decisions and conversations really, as you said, really hard, because you're quite closely, passionately thinking about the turtle you're trying to save. And we have a turtle who actually lives in our office. So I know turtles very well. He's called Sheldon, and he's an absolute legend. Yeah, he turned up about this big, and he was from one of my guests years ago, and he's just stayed. We've had
He's probably is he a tortoise? He's probably a tortoise.
He is a turtle. I've done
what, like swimming around?
Yeah, he's got a massive tank and he swims all over the place.
Amazing!
Yeah. He's now about this big. He's grown quite a lot, but so for anyone listening, not watching, he's probably I'd say about sort of 15, 20 centimeters in size now.
So cute.
But you must have those dilemmas though, where it's like, okay, I'm quite passionate about this thing, but it's not working. I need to make some tough decisions to make it work or stop the whole thing. So how do you approach that sometimes when you almost have to like look in the mirror and go like, okay, this is going to be a very hard to digest humble pie I need to eat here about what I am passionate about versus actually from a financial point of view, like this has to work or nothing works?
Yeah, it's tough because I think especially the model we've chosen where we're donating 10% of our profits. So that's 10% to the bottom line. And I don't think a lot of people maybe don't appreciate, it doesn't sound like much, I know that, but when you're a growing small business, 10% of profits is hard. Like it is challenging. I think we cut out the straws. We had like other products like recycled t-shirts and things, and I had no ego around that. I was quite happy to say, not the right thing, we're on to something else, move on. Like, if anything, that kind of goes with my nature because I'm quite like, oh, what's next? Next thing, like flashy, shiny things happen. But from doing a right thing, it's hard. The other thing is I do really love business. Like, I'm really fascinated. I'm very energized by the business itself. So I think if you put those two things together, I'm not going to let the business die because of like, we're always going to try and do the right thing, but ultimately we cannot do the right thing if the business doesn't exist. So you have to remember that the business has to be sustainable. You can still do the right thing and grow a business. I really believe that. But ultimately the business has to sustain itself.
Yeah. I mean, I sometimes do certainly with my team, and they'll vouch for this. Sometimes they're like, oh, but Nick, this would just be so amazing if we did that. And I'm like, yeah, but the bottom line doesn't add up. I'm really sorry. So I'm not saying no, I'm saying let's reassess it. How do we achieve both things? Which is exactly what you've just said. And I think certainly there's lots of very good sustainable companies that grow really, really quick and do a really good job of it. I mean, if you just look at the whole, like, I'm literally having solar panels put on my house this week, and I'm so excited to like go a bit greener. And I think of some of the green initiatives, solar panels are probably one of the better things. That's like power literally from the sun goes straight into my plug socket and charges my electric car, and I drive that. I know electric cars are not eco-friendly whatsoever, and we're seeing through all of that now. But the whole point being is, I think with the green movement, there is a way to do it in a way that is sustainable from a business point of view and sustainable from a planet point of view. That said, I do feel like there is this, and this is kind of leading on to my next question about being, how do you kind of have a green business really, is when the whole world needs to change. Like, I read a statistic the other day that the total emissions in the UK of carbon is lower than how much China grows each year in terms of their emission output. Which then leaves me with this sick taste in my mouth of going, all right, we need to be like sucking like 50 times what we generate out the atmosphere. Or it's not that there's no point, there's definitely, if there's more carbon in one part of the world, it doesn't necessarily affect everybody, but it will have a level of global effect. But how do you approach that whole green sort of, as I just said, like, arguments can be dismantled, and people going like, we're doing it this way, and people go, planting trees doesn't help for 20 years. So why are you doing that? How do you kind of fight on the green side whilst also being realistic about everyone needs to change and it's not just a marketing thing? We are actually creating a difference here.
It's a very good question. And I think the thing is, as you mentioned with the electric car example, we're seeing through stuff. Everyone's getting more and more skeptical about like every little green claim, as they should. Like you now, you can't just make green claims anymore. Like that's, you get fined for that now. That's come out in like EU regulation. So I think it's really, to start with, it's about that like level of transparency. And I'm like I'm very hot on this in the team to try and avoid greenwashing. Like we're not out there saying this is the most sustainable sock, this is eco-friendly. We're not out there saying that, because ultimately it's still a product that is being produced, that there is emissions behind it. So I think it's that like level of education, but it's still working towards the right long-term goal. Like my ultimate goal is to have a completely circular sock that can be like recycled over and over again. We're not there yet, but we're working on it. And I just love to get to that point, but it does take some time. But all of these like sustainable initiatives, these things that companies are doing, it's all got to happen, and it is a step in the right direction. But really, I think you're right. I think it's got to be government led. Like before we go deep into politics, like I think these changes.
There is an election on at the moment in more than one place.
I think massive companies and the governments are the ones that are really going to move the needle. And I'm still going to continue doing the right thing as both as a consumer and a small business, because we are a powerful collective. But we need big change, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it, as I say, it is tough. I know it's probably the hardest question I think I've ever asked a guest, of like, how do we solve the global eco-green crisis in one sentence? But it's a good point. And actually, I think someone years ago on the podcast describes Shopify as like, it's like the Rebel Alliance in Star Wars. I like Star Wars, I'm not a massive fan, but you get the analogy of like, it's like the Rebel Alliance fighting back against the dark side being the Amazons and the big corporates in this world. And actually this movement and growth, I think, has been incredible. Like with any new industry, there's been stores that haven't made it, like mine, for example. And, and obviously you guys have been through some of those near misses, as you say, but survived and kept going. I think seeing this movement has been incredible. Like we had somebody from Shopify on who said that in the first 3 months of COVID in the UK alone, the number of Shopify stores registered doubled. They literally doubled in number in the first 3 months. And it sounds like you were well, maybe you were slightly before that, but in fact, you would have been if it was 6 years ago. But yeah, that whole movement of like, okay, I'm starting a store. So that next episode I did after he said that is like, there are now 2 competitors for every one that there were before. So you've your competitors just doubled overnight. Congratulations, everybody. And it's probably going to stop. And it didn't stop.
Super, super saturated marketplace right now.
Yeah. So how, I guess a really good question from a marketing point of view, how do you cut through that noise of like, if I went on Amazon, for example, or Temu, I just out of principle, I'm going to say it's publicly on the podcast, I've never shopped at Temu and I never plan to shop at Temu. I hate the whole concept.
That's like another Shein. There's more random products on that, isn't it? Yeah. Just always pops up. It's like the top of Google shopping for everything.
It is.
So
and
like,
it can't be ethical. It's financially impossible for it to be ethical. But my point being is if I go on there and search bamboo socks, they're all selling them. They've all got different socks. And one question I love asking brands, what's your USP? Like, how do you cut through that and go, buy our socks, not somebody else's?
So it's a really good question, because we've been focusing on it a lot recently. We obviously have the unique side of the business, which is the animal donation part of it. So we've got a range of about 50, 60 pairs of socks, like different designs now. And that's going to should double within the year as well. So we've got like a big range of animal socks, but each charity is very specific to the sock. So it's Turtles, Turtle Foundation, Orangutan Foundation. So like as a consumer, you're like supporting the sock, the animal that you're buying. That's what you're supporting. So we hold on to that unique side of it. That's very hard to achieve, because all of those are direct relationships I hold with each charity. So it's a lot of work. So people aren't going to copy us exactly in that aspect, because it's so much work. So we do have that angle of the business that we have always hammered on, but we're changing our marketing a bit this year. We're still doing all of that and we're still talking about it, but we're going way more focused on product, like way more focused on the key proof points and how we market the product, because ultimately people just want a really good pair of socks. They want the socks that are going to last. They want them to be soft. They want them to be breathable. And we're putting just more technical knowledge and language around how we market the sock. So it's like Cloud9, comfort, technology, and all of this kind of thing. So we're putting way more of that into it because consumers ultimately want to buy a product that is good and that they want. So we're trying to go down that angle. And then we have the halo effect, which is the charities, the stories. We lean heavily into me being the founder, young female entrepreneur, that, people love that. But then the stories behind the charities as well. We go and volunteer with the charities. So the stories kind of like it's almost like pillars of like technical language, stories, and then the kind of doing good, supporting small business type thing. But that's how we're trying to do it this year.
Well, I mean, it sounds really good. And I think such a nice link up because I think people buy products and then I use the tree example earlier. I'm going to use it again now. It's like, hey, you've bought a new, and I use this all the time because I always have this lovely water bottle, which I bought from the local supermarket. Hey, you bought a water bottle. Guess what? We planted some trees. You're like, that's good, but it's a bit random, isn't it? When you stop and think about it, you're like, it's random. Therefore I don't care because it doesn't mean anything to the product. That as a brand, we should focus on this product. It should be like, isn't this the best water bottle? It's vacuum packed. Have you tried putting ice in it yet? And it's like, no, I haven't. So I did do that because I saw it in an advert. So I put a bit of ice in, shut it, left it for 8 hours in the sun, opened it. Ice was still there. I was like, amazing. My mind is blown. How does this work? But they obviously, but I just think people are selling products and doing the wrong thing that's disassociated. So I think the fact, there's a turtle foundation if you buy turtle socks. It's simple to understand, and I think that's been one of the challenges I think with people going green or making buying decisions is as soon as it gets too complicated, I'm out. I'm like, you nailed it. I just want some nice, comfortable socks. So actually, I think you guys, I'm gonna preempt this and tell me if I'm completely wrong because it happens regularly. But did you guys go down the route of like, right, eco-friendly and start banging all these USPs, and then you spoke to your customers, they're like, it's just really comfy. Like all the other stuff's good, but it's just really comfy, and an honest kind of, okay, it's comfy. We need to focus on the comfort.
Yeah, you are right, kind of, because we started looking at people still talk about the charity angle, and I think that's why people want to support us overall. But that's supporting us overall and saying that is different from buying decisions and actually putting their money where their mouth is. And I think the people put their money where their mouth is because it's quality product that lasts, and also it's a gifting product as well. A lot of the time, the people that they give it to like it, and so they repeat that behavior. We started looking at reviews, and that the reviews told us everything we needed to know. Like, it's what a great pair of socks, like so soft, so comfy. Customer service was probably in there a lot. And then always afterwards, and it's still mentioned a lot, but it was always afterwards be like, oh, and they support the animal. That's really nice. I really like that they do that. So they like that we do that. But ultimately, they're talking about it could be a gimmicky thing, right? We could do this and it'd be a rubbish product. And then they get it and like, oh, I like the idea, but I'm not going to buy that again.
Bad execution,
bad execution, exactly. So you're right. I think it's that ultimately they're looking for a good product. So we're kind of giving them the whole experience, and that makes them feel nice and warm and fluffy inside, and then they'll come back.
Yeah, and I read a whole book recently about holding back the good stuff. I can't remember the exact name of it. But it was to that point of like, if you can sell something to someone, whether it's marketing a product or a service or building a personal connection so someone buys into you or your service, like say it's insurance, you're buying into insurance, it's often because the person you're talking to is fantastic, which for anyone who's not in the UK, you won't have heard this. It's just sparked again, we're going to go on a slight tangent. There's an energy company in the UK called Octopus, and their radio advert right now, I don't know if you've heard it, Lucy, in the car or anything, but the radio...
I don't think so. Go on.
So they record all calls for quality and training purposes. They just play like 4 or 5 people on the phone going, I've never enjoyed talking to an energy company before. You've been fantastic. Like, you've solved my problems. And I didn't realize I was saving so much. This is great. Like, I'm staying with it. And I was like, it literally just says Octopus Energy. Check out our website.
that is marketing. That is surely somewhere there's a LinkedIn post there somewhere. Come on.
Exactly. And so there's definitely power, though, I think, in the sales process of holding back something until post-sale, which you could do with some of this. I think if you're now leading with the sort of, this sock is incredibly comfortable, or watch this person's reaction when they open the gift, they try it on and go, oh, that is comfortable, actually. And then you wait until after they've purchased it to go, all the messages are still, as you say, they're still there, but they're secondary on the site. After the purchase, go, look, this orangutan now is going back into the wild and being released thanks to your donation. Like that then hammers home. And one of the biggest things I find brands really struggle with, and this is the smoothest segue I've done in a long time into email, brands really struggle with email stories. We had a brand on We've had Janice Thomas, her name, and she's from Look Fabulous Forever. And she's been on the podcast twice. They're another UK-based business. And she said she sends an email every day and they get like a 50% open rate on daily emails. So my question obviously was, how do you come up with 365 stories? But you've got stories, haven't you? So if somebody buys some turtle socks, say, look, we're really trying to raise, here's a, I don't know if you've ever done this, but like a funding goal, for example, because we're trying to reach a funding goal. So come buy our socks. They're 20% off because we're desperately trying to hit this goal at the moment to help this enclosure or wherever it is. So you must have some incredibly powerful material because you've got a good brand, good USP, people like it, good product. You must have great material for email and just kind of general customer engagement.
Oh yeah, I think people really buy into the stories behind it, and we have stories behind every single product, like unique stories. Like we can literally name an animal that the donations are helping, and we do really lean into that, especially around. We do our charity impact report usually in around February. So we do it based on the previous calendar year. So we add up all of our donations and we go out to our charities and say, this is what we're donating. Like in real terms, what could this do? So they can come back to us by saying, well, it's X acres of rainforest protected. It's 3 injections for injured wildlife, all kinds of things. Wow. And we package that together. So that happens at the start of the year. And that's obviously like awesome to be able to talk about. And then it's all the other stories, and not even just charity stuff. It's things like, I went to visit one of our retailers. We've done a lot in the B2B space, nice. Particularly on like digital wholesale marketplaces. And I went to visit one of our retailers in person. They have an amazing sock wall. They're called U Underwear in Oxford. If in the covered market, if anyone goes to visit there, you'll see an incredible display of our socks in there. And they are one of our best retailers because they have done such an awesome display of our socks. And, I went in, I took lots of photos. I got a picture with the owner who like I know quite well now, but like that's one story there. Like and people love seeing founder stuff, behind the scenes stuff, so much that like loads of bigger businesses are trying to be more founder. Well, yeah, they can't do it, but they're trying to. They're almost trying to bring out like founders that have been like retired ages ago, and they're trying to bring them back in, being like, remember this guy? I think it's a real powerful way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, who doesn't want a day out to Oxford as well? I think the behind the scenes
this
though
is my job.
Like, it's basically Harry Potter land. That's how I see it. Because I don't know if anyone who's in the US, like if we drive over an hour in the UK, it's bare far. Like it's too far to handle almost. But yeah, certainly the Oxford's like an hour and a half from me, and I've got friends that live in Bampton nearby. They're great. But I think the most powerful thing you've really captured there, and there was I think they were called China Clay Imports. It's a company I interviewed who are based in the US, but they literally have a mountain. That was it. They're on the US-Mexico border. There's literally a mountain where all the clay comes from. And they regularly just like drive 5 minutes to where the clay's coming from and do live stories, show the trucks coming out. Be like, we found a really rare type of clay, so we're going to make some stuff out of it. It's going to be on our new range coming up soon. Click here if you want to join the waiting list, to hear about when it comes out and stuff. And it's so engaged because people actually, you collect. It's not just a plate you're buying; it's like a piece of art. So people actually collect these things, and I think just that whole behind the scenes is absolutely incredible. Where I think companies get it wrong, and you don't have to admit if you have done this in the past. I think number one is when they do like a day in the life, and it's just crap. Excuse my French, when it's just like it's like I saw one a while ago from another marketing agency, and it was a day in the life of an account manager, and I was like, this is so boring. Like it's like, hey guys, I'm in a meeting, and it was like, cool. Can't tell you where I am, but I'm in a meeting. I mean, I used to vlog years ago on YouTube, so I can't talk. And my channel's down before anyone tries to go and find it. But I think that one thing is just when the content is rubbish, and the second thing is when it's just not kept up. So the worst thing is even if you only got 20 people watching it, engaging for those 20 and keeping it live, because those 20 are going to be the nucleus of it growing into something bigger. And you guys must have like kind of started something and gone, oh, that was rubbish, let's change it. And almost felt embarrassed then of like, oh, we need to post something. But I guess the question is sort of similar to email is, how do you come up with those social stories? Do you go for just more of a sort of what's going on today and just keep people just feeding these random bits every now and then just to keep people engaged? Do you create like a series out of it and keep them kind of like, tune in next time or tune in tomorrow for the big reveal of something? Or
yeah, see, I don't think we're a great example of this because I haven't been like super consistent with it, but it is something we've been playing around with recently, and that's going live on TikTok. Because, well, one, I mean, you can keep it up because you can take, once you finish going live, you can take the snippets and put it live almost as a teaser to be like, hey guys, you just missed out on this. But what I would say is, and I was going to say after the China clay import thing, is it doesn't need to be as exciting as that to engage people, especially on TikTok. It's actually crazy because I was like, what do I talk about? I'm just at home. That's like, there's nothing like, I don't even pack my own orders. So I was literally, just to practice, when I was making lunch, because that's the only time I'm not just at my desk, I just go live on TikTok just to practice. I wasn't even expecting anyone to join. To start with, it was literally so I could just play around with the features. But then people started joining who are like big fans. Like I've got people that are like, I've got 20 pairs of your socks. And I'm like, oh my gosh, hi.
Great.
Like, tell me everything. And so
this has just become a focus group, by the way, guys.
Yeah, it basically became a focus group. And then we started realizing no matter what time of day we went live, it could be lunch, it could be an evening, it could be a weekend, these people would always join. Wow. So we then started bringing it up here to the office, and I'd be like, hey guys, we've just got these samples from the factory. Like, what do you think of this color? What do you think of this?
Nice.
And people loved it. They engaged with it. Again, it's that very, as you said, it's that nucleus. It's that very small like field of people. But I definitely think there is something there if I can stay consistent with it. But it's one of those things that you take a break from it. Like I was doing it like a few times a week for a couple of weeks, and then I went on holiday, and then I got busy, and so I need to do it again. Yeah. So, but I do think there's something there. But we do, I mean, from a feedback point of view, we do have a Facebook group with all of our advocates in. So we tend to post stuff in that and be like, guys, what do you think of this? Can you vote on this? And that really helps. But from a content point of view, I don't think I'm the best person to advocate a version of this because I've not been very consistent at doing it. That's just having the time.
I appreciate your honesty though, and I think that's one of the things I love asking people about is getting those honest stories of like that is an area we actually really want to improve. Because we certainly get some brands coming on going like, oh yeah, we did this thing on TikTok and it just went viral and everyone was celebrating. Like when people ask me how like the Winning with Shopify Instagram's going, I just think like, yeah, I got 60,000 views on a single reel. It cost me like £30 to advertise that. I got 60,000 views. I was like, how did you get that? And it's after a while I sort of stopped and went, do you know what? The engagement wasn't incredible. And I certainly didn't get 60,000 subscribers on the podcast. That would have been lovely. But the reach was there. So actually, I think that there's always the learnings, isn't there? Okay, maybe the call to action needs to be adapted. But no, I appreciate your honesty because, yeah, this is so easy, certainly when you're being interviewed. And I find this to go like, yeah, this is great. This is great. This is great. And I get home and I'm like, why am I so depressed and anxious if everything's great? And it's like, because I wasn't very honest. Yeah, I think some of the... Again, like one of the things we actually launched it a few days ago. So I wasn't going to talk about too much, but we've launched a community for brands like you guys and all of our listeners to come and engage. We're sort of drip feeding people in little waves and getting feedback at the moment. But yeah, the whole point of that was to get people having these discussions where someone can go, guys, this is my store. I just cannot get this technical bit of code to work. My social's failing, or my email's just not firing, or I added live chat to my site and my conversion rate's halved. Like it's all falling off a cliff, and I thought this was going to improve it. And for people to go, oh, that happened to us. We adapted and we did get it higher than previous. So you can stick with it. You could test it. You could A/B test it, 20% of people. And it's those kind of insights I think are so key actually to understand. But yeah, appreciate your honesty. But I think TikTok is such an interesting, I know it's not like completely new anymore, but it's such an interesting avenue. We like quite a few of our clients have never spent a penny advertising on it yet. We've got millions of views, literally millions. And it's like,
and it's not just Gen Z either. Like everyone's on it now as well. Yeah. So these advocates of ours that have got all our socks, they're all, I don't know their exact ages, but they've all got like kids in school, like they're that kind of, so I'm not speaking to our like Gen Z demographic really. Yeah. So yeah, it's awesome.
Okay. That's a good question. So many of our customers or our clients we work with and people that have been on the podcast have been like, in fact, Jake last week had this exactly. They're called, if anyone that missed the episode, it's Recycled Fireman. It's a firefighter. Sorry, it's fireman in the UK, firefighter in the US. Recycled firefighter. And he gets old fire hoses that are like, that material is so industrial. Like you literally sprint into a burning building and that thing survives and passes water into the building without heating it up. He makes wallets, bags, all sorts of stuff out of it. And he thought he was going to get all these like really kind of big, crazy like guys who like work out at the gym a lot going like, I got the most crazy wallet you've ever heard. And he thought it was going to be eco-friendly coupled with all these kind of gym monkeys and stuff. It turned out people just loved the bags. It was good material. They really enjoyed using them. And it was nothing to do with the eco-friendly side. So similar to yourself, it was you're going to look great, feel great. We only make 20. We've only got enough hose to make 20 of these bags, so we're just going to make a few. So how did you really understand who your customer was? Like, was there a defining kind of moment or a season you guys went through that was like, okay, at this point we thought it was just going to be, maybe that is the example, is that like we thought it was going to be eco-friendly until, as you say, we read the reviews and it changed. Like, was there any defining moments that really changed that direction?
I think it's a work in progress. We do know who our customers are, and we really know who our like most loyal fans are. What's an interesting thing for our product is it's very much a gifting product. We're so seasonal. We're so skewed towards Christmas. About 70% of our revenue is in Q4, which is hard to manage from a cash flow point of view.
Scary.
Yeah, real scary.
Sorry, I shouldn't. That's going to instill more anxiety. But you're going to have a great Christmas.
It's currently June right now.
Yep.
It's not good. No. So no, we do have to like manage right now. That's why B2B has been a good channel for us, because it's a bit more consistent. But D2C goes absolutely wild at Christmas. So we know it's a gifting product. So it's not necessarily that the end user could be anyone, but it's the people buying it tends to be the kind of gift buyers of the household. Those are the people we want to tap into. So it's who in the family are buying all the gifts every year, and it's usually someone's mum.
That would be my mother-in-law. Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's usually someone's mum. Cool. So that is the kind of demographic that we're going after, and Facebook ads do very well for us.
But I think even that's interesting when you almost sort of said no at the start, like it's kind of a bit of a mix. But even gifting, there must have been a way that you found out. And I mean, it's probably all the different things, isn't it? Talking to customers, looking at reviews, engaging on that social group as well. But even learning that it's gifting, it must have been such an important part of the journey to then go, all right, gift wrap. Do you want a message sent in it? Are we sending it straight to customer? Are we sending it to you and you're wrapping it and sending it to customer? There must be a whole kind of part of that to say to someone, this is the perfect gift, as opposed to this is the best pair of socks you're ever going to buy for yourself.
Yeah, and it definitely comes in at Christmas. Like it just everything is Christmas gift. We know that. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Stocking filler, everything, and we really lean into building a bundle. Like people, because literally people will come to us and buy 10, 20 pairs of socks, and they're like, "Great, I bought a pair for everyone in my family. That's everyone's stockings done. That's the kids' teachers done. Yeah. Like it's a really easy gift." So that's what we really lean into, kind of the bundle building aspect of it.
Yep.
It is a massive part for us. Yeah. We did do some like demographic, like I remember when in like the first year of me going full time, we did some like customer surveys. We had about 300 people respond, because we're actually looking at it this week, because we're going to do another one soon. And it was really like looking into like, okay, who are you buying for? And it was mostly for someone else. It was very rarely they're buying. Interestingly, they'd buy for someone else. When they realize it's good quality, they'd then treat themselves. We have that, like people would then want the pair themselves. So we do like lean into that as well. But it was very much, we also asked them, like 100% of the women who filled in the survey did all the gift buying for the household.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But we get the last minute shoppers. The men tend to do the very last minute Christmas shopping as well.
Guilty.
So that's so that comes in like nearer Christmas as well.
Oh, wow. But again, like the amount of insight you've got on that is so important. And I've seen so many businesses fall apart when they just don't understand this stuff. There's one client in particular who they said, like, you don't understand our customer. So I said, all right, challenge accepted. Let's all write down who we think the customer is. We'll send out a survey. We'll do a bit of research into like, you get a tiny bit of information from Google Analytics, doesn't really tell you much. But yeah, we'll do a survey. We'll actually talk to we will interview your customer service team for you and really find out. And it doesn't matter who's right. It just matters that we know. But actually, it was the challenge accepted element of me. And that was part of my like account management skills, going, all right, let's set a challenge here. Like, let's put £10 on it. And if you're right, I'll give you a tenner. And if I'm right, you give me a tenner. And we wrote them down, spoke to customer service and stuff. And neither of us was right. So we gave £20 to charity at that point. But it was fascinating, actually, that when we found that out, they just changed everything. The whole branding, even the color scheme of the website, the whole shebang. Because it was very like red, black, bits of yellow, very bright, angry colors, like almost kind of like a workman's tools or something. You know, they're always like kind of like, this is the most powerful tool. And they changed it all to soft pastel colors and realized actually it was the right customer, but they weren't the ones buying. The ones who were buying saw something else in the product for that person. So we were working on the aspirations of the person buying the product, what they wanted their partner or dad to look like, basically, or son. And it was funny? That kind of, Yeah, and so it was fascinating when we changed those kind of things. And even that product, going back to the whole green eco-friendly side of things, they had all of that and it was all an afterthought. And actually they decided we're going to put a little thing in the product. So when they open it, it's like, here's an amazing product. Oh, and by the way, we've just done this for, helping the planet go green. Like we've sucked X carbon out of the atmosphere as a result of you buying this product. So I think things like that can certainly work really well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, last question, unless we got any other tangents, which does happen. But last question, just looking at the time, we'll come into land on this one. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges you can see coming up? Obviously, the seasonality one you've mentioned. Are there any other big challenges that you guys are like, this is potentially a challenge for us, probably a challenge for lots of others as well? Anything you're looking forward to in the future going like, okay, we need to get ready for this thing now?
I mean, the thing that's top of mind for us at the moment, which ties into the seasonality piece, is the kind of how much stock we're holding. So the thing is, it's not like a new problem. This is like a age-old problem. Yeah. It's retail, right? When you're super seasonal, you have long lead times. And you might have high MOQs as well. I think that is like the biggest challenge for us. Is just like managing all of that. And I think consumers are not like fickle, but there is a lot of like, okay, on to the next thing. What's new? And like, I think our product is good and that it's not going to go anywhere. Like people love a good pair of socks. It's going to keep going around. We've purposely made it so it's not like super seasonal. Like it's not like a fashion trend that's just going to disappear.
Yep.
So it's good from that aspect. But I can imagine that being generally in the industry quite tough. If you're in a fast moving industry and you can't move things fast enough, like what is happening to all this dead stock? Yeah. And this is the problem. And they're saying, yes, it's now illegal to burn it. It's illegal to destroy it. Like, but there's just so much things being produced that it's like, where is it going? So I do feel really like proud that our product is something that, one, is durable. Two is you can just keep wearing it. Like I've been doing it for a few years now and I keep wearing the same pair of socks. It keeps going. And it's still, it's not really a trend. It's just a pair of socks. But I think there is a danger in the industry of those products that are super like high trend and then disappeared, and then it's, where does that go?
And I can't remember who it was. I said it would have been a UK brand. I saw an advert over the weekend that said, we've made too many, oops. And that was their like outlet section, and I was like, that is genius. Just putting an angle on it, like, we made too many, oops. And it literally, I went on their website and I think it might have been, I'm going to say Bowden. I think it might have been Bowden. And yes, I wasn't shopping for myself. But I think it might have been Bowden. It would have been a similar brand to that. But I remember going on their website and it was like, it was actually called that. And the normal nav was in a normal font. And this looked like someone with like a fountain pen had actually just written in, we made too many. And then the word oops written on the side.
Nice.
So it looked like they'd handwritten it. I might find out who it was. So if you're watching this going, I need to find out who that is, check the show notes. I'm going to make a note to put it in the show notes underneath. So you'll see it in the description of whatever platform you're on. But yeah, I have invited I'm going to invite them on. So yeah, by the time you watch this, I will have invited them. I'm going to check them, but you're absolutely right. And sitting on stock, like consumers, I'm going to have a tiny moan here because it's mostly merchants listening, not consumers. Consumers just see the price and what's it going to do for me and make a split decision in seconds. Partly because they're not aware. The time is too tight these days. Life is so complicated. Like, I remember talking to my nan who said, like, back in like the 1950s, life was so simple compared to today. It was so easy to understand. You got up, you went to work, you came home, you had dinner, you went to bed. It was nice and simple. Now there's all this stuff of like, I mean, who even really understands what PPI is? As an example of something super complex, GDPR. There's all these different acronyms that are just hitting us left, right, and center. But consumers don't have the time to look at it. So it's our job as marketeers to make them aware of this stuff. So yeah, what you can do with your stock. And you mentioned to start looking at your manufacturers and supply chains and stuff. So I assume that that's a linked point as well of going, if we can get hold of stuff quicker, we don't need to sit on as much of it.
Yeah, it is. The lead time has been a massive problem for us because we've been up to like a 4-month lead time, but actually adding on more manufacturers is really about kind of having more power, more leverage as well in the supply chain, especially from a payment terms point of view. Because one of the manufacturers we added on, they came to us to say, okay, well, we want 50% when you make the order and 50% before we ship it, and we were just like, no, like no.
Yeah.
So
that's
like,
me
okay,
buying stuff that I haven't sold yet. So like, it's just cash.
So we just said no, and then we were like, okay, bye. And they were like, no, wait. And then suddenly, I think we've got we've got like 40% like 70 days after it's landed or something. Like, so we still have to pay a bit up front, but then a lot more is like later on. So it's about having leverage in the supply chain as well, which is very powerful.
I'm just having a look on my, sorry, this is slightly, I should have all this stuff ready, guys. The reality is I don't. I'm just having a look on Spotify because I listened to an amazing sales audiobook recently. It's quite an old school approach. I can't find the name of it. How annoying. Again, I'll try and put it in the show notes, guys, if I can find it. But he just spoke so clearly about like, don't be afraid to walk away from a sale and stuff like this. I'll try and find it. It looks like they might have taken it down. It's not in my library.
You hold all the power in that then. Like as soon as you're desperate for something and it's your only option, you have no power.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important just to say like, look, it's a win-win. So we're not negotiating on this thing because it's bad for you. So if you don't want that, there's no deal here. And whichever side you're sitting on as well. I've certainly found from sitting on my side, negotiating with you guys or watching all you merchants, negotiating with you guys when some people have said like, oh, you weren't the most cheap, you weren't the cheapest agency. And I say, well, this is an investment. So you want it to go well. So we're not cheap because if you buy a cheap agency, you're going to get a cheap result. Yeah. You want a very expensive result. So that's that. Next question. And we've walked away from stuff before, and 6 months later had someone email. In fact, a guy emailed me a few weeks ago and just put in the subject line like, "Here's a slice of humble pie," and I was like, I know what this is. And we've given them a discount to come on board to fix what's gone on as a gesture of goodwill because we do appreciate them coming back, and that's it. And then it's like back to full price afterwards. But I think that the negotiation is so important. And going back to what you said right at the start, and I said we'll finish on this point, and we'll finish in a second. But going to what you're saying right at the start about all the things you don't know when you first start an e-commerce business, finding yourself negotiating with the sales conversation with a salesperson from a manufacturer must have been a completely new experience the first time you did that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And we still work a bit with my very first manufacturer. So he's one of the manufacturers still. Amazing. Like he's got us to where we are today, but we also need to kind of leverage up and work with like bigger manufacturers as well. What negotiation, basically? I just kind of just did what he said.
That's the price, right? See you later. Yeah, absolutely. I remember when we bought our sunglasses, it was through Alibaba initially, and we ended up working direct with a different supplier we found on Google. Or I think it was Beidou, actually. I used Beidou to do it. It was in the Chinese search engine. So, but it was fascinating, actually, having that first conversation and going like, no, this is too much. They half the price. And I was like so offended. I was like, I'll see you later. It's like, if you're willing to literally half the price per unit just because I said no, like how much are your actual overheads? And also at that price, what are the working conditions? And so the factory we went with, we basically asked for a video call. We're like, I want a tour of the factory of someone making one of our samples while it's being produced, please. And we got that, and that was and we actually used it on the website as promotional material as well. So like, are these cheap fake sunglasses from China? Well, they are from China, but here's someone making a pair for you, and even stamping our logo on the side. And I thought that was actually quite powerful.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Awesome. There you go. It's a free marketing idea for you and anyone else listening, of course. But anyway, well, look, Lucy, I mean, I've written a whole page of notes. We've covered a huge amount of ground today. I really appreciate your time. It's been great to have you on. And for everybody listening as well, Lucy was due to come on a few months ago, but I think something popped up at your end and something popped up at my end on the rearrangement. And then we changed series the next month. Now. So it's great to have you on. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Good. And for everyone listening, we'll be back again next Friday. I'm actually away next week, so I've said to Byron the time we're recording this to get us a good guest on. So there'll be somebody amazing as always, I'm sure. But thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, and if you didn't listen to our episode midweek, go join our free community. It's going to be absolutely incredible. So go join the waiting list, and we'll drop you in when the time's right. But thank you so much for tuning in, and thanks for listening to the podcast.